10 miles west of Boston. Ellie comments that she's never been in the woods before, and there's more bugs than she thought. She says that Tess and him made a choice to go on this trip in exchange for a truck battery, so she doesn't want to be blamed for something that isn't her fault. They have a 4-hour hike ahead of them. Ellie asks if Bill and Frank are nice, and Joel says Frank is. They talk about the scar on his head, and he says the guy missed. But so did he. And it happens more often than she'd think. He admits that he sucks at shooting in general. So Ellie asks once again if she can have a gun, but he says no. Joel makes a stop to grab some old supplies he stashed away, and Ellie sees an arcade game that makes her geek out about the idea of even playing a video game. While Joel zones in on where he left the stuff, Ellie asks if there's anything bad in the building, and he says just here. Ellie fake laughs and moves stuff off of a latch on the floor. She enters the basement and finds tampons before hearing an infected, trapped in a pile of cement. She cuts his skin before stabbing him in the head. Joel returns a gun back into the floor as Ellie reappears and asks if she can keep it. He says no. It's useless because the ammo for it is hard to find. As they walk, Ellie asks about Outbreak Day, how everything went from normal everyday life to total hell. She asks who the first person was that was bitten or infected, and if it was a monkey. And Joel says no one knows for sure, but somehow the fungus mutated and it got into something like sugar or flour. The product was distributed around the world, and people started consuming it on September 26, 2003. By the next Monday, everything was gone. Ellie thanks him and says it makes more sense than monkeys. They approach something Joel says he doesn't want Ellie to see, but she insists she has to see it now. She lays eyes on several skulls and bones. A week after Outbreak Day, soldiers went through the countryside and told people they were going to Accusey. Many of them did, but sometimes there wasn't enough room, so this is where they were killed. These people weren't sick. She asks why they couldn't just leave them alone, and he says dead people can't get infected. 2003, a man watches soldiers enter his home via security camera, but he is in a hidden sub-basement, so they don't find him. People are hauled away to be killed. He emerges and checks his surroundings. The neighborhood is silent and empty. He hooks up his boat and breaks into a gas station and a supply store. The power goes out faster than he expected. He breaks into the gas plant to turn on the gas line for his house. He powers on his generator, chops wood, plants a garden, owns chickens, and butchers his beef. He puts together a perfect meal, and as he eats, he's alerted to a motion detector. His trap kills it easily. 4 years later, 2007, he enters an electric gate to his private development. As he works, an alarm sounds. He goes to check a hole in the ground when he hears a man call out that he's not infected. He swears he's only trying to get to Boston, from the Baltimore QZ that no longer exists. He gives him a ladder and uses a scanner to see if he's telling the truth. The man asks how he got a scanner, but he doesn't answer. He points him in the direction of Boston, but the man doesn't want to leave yet. He introduces himself as Frank and says he hasn't eaten in 2 days. Even though it doesn't sound as long when he says it out loud, he swears it feels like a long time. He hesitates to feed him because then hobos around the area will come expecting something. But Frank swears he won't tell any hobos. Frank takes a hot shower and asks for more time because of how amazing it feels. He's amazed at the fortress this man has built. Frank looks at him like he's heaven sent and finds it impossible not to geek out over the food. He pairs the rabbit entree with a special wine, and Frank compliments his taste. He offers him seconds, and although he wants to, he can't. Frank genuinely thanks him. Before he leaves, he walks over to the 1948 piano and finds a songbook to play and sing. The man stops him, so Frank challenges him to do it better. He chooses a slow love song and sings it beautifully. Frank asks what girl he's singing about, and he says there is no girl. Frank says he knows, and leans in to kiss him. Frank asks his name, and Bill tells him. Following his shower, they get acquainted in bed. 3 years later, 2010, they're fighting about the appearance of the neighborhood around them. Frank explains that paying attention to things is how they show love, and he feels like he needs to fix up the neighborhood and some stores for when they have friends come over. Bill says they won't ever have friends because there are no friends to be had. But Frank says he's been talking to a nice woman on the radio. Before Bill knows it, they are hosting for Joel and Tess. She compliments Frank on the beauty of their surroundings and admires all the work they've done. Frank assures her they will be working together, making trades and keeping in contact from now on. They go inside so he can show her something, despite Bill and Joel's objections. Joel says he understands he's nervous to have people in their safe place, but assures him they are just two honest people trying to get by. Joel says they have books, medicine, and machine parts back at the FVDRA camp. He says they can help each other, but Bill says he doesn't want them complicating their lives because they're self-sufficient and have a good thing going. Joel points out that the wire on his electric fence is already starting to corrode, and he could get him 10 spools of high-tensile aluminum to replace it. That would last the rest of their lives. Frank gives Tess items for trade and talks with her about the radio code they'll use. Joel warns Bill that soon, raiders will come at night and they'll be capable of getting past his traps. Another 3 years later, 2013, after a jog, Frank surprises Bill with a strawberry patch. He traded Joel and Tess a small gun for a packet of seeds. Bill apologizes for getting old faster than him, but Frank says it's good he's getting older because it means they're still there. Bill admits that he was never afraid before Frank showed up. Frank wakes up in the middle of the night to raiders breaking into their compound and triggering their traps. Bill is already outside shooting at them. When he hears Frank, he turns to tell him to get back inside, and in that moment, he is shot. Once inside, Bill tells Frank to call Joel because he can't be there alone. Frank says he isn't alone while he fixes up Bill's wound. He doesn't notice when Bill stops stalking. 10 years later, 2023, Bill brings Frank back inside the house in his wheelchair. Frank paints while Bill waters the plants. At dinner, Bill reminds him to take his pills. He helps him to bed and kisses his forehead goodnight. The next morning, Frank is sitting in his chair already and tells Bill he won't get back into bed because today is his last day. He says he's already made up his mind and asks Bill to give him just one more great day. He tells him he wants him to take him to the boutique, get dressed up, marry him, and have an amazing dinner with all his pills crushed up in his wine. This way, he can simply fall asleep in his arms. Bill does everything for him, just as he asked. Seeing the way Bill drinks his wine tells Frank that the whole bottle of wine was drugged. Bill assures him he's happy, satisfied, and has lived a wonderful life with him. Joel knows something is wrong when the flowers are dead and the front door simply opens. A blanket of dust lays over the remnants of their last supper. Ellie finds a letter and key from Bill that explains they are both dead. It asks them not to go into the bedroom and that he's welcome to have any of their supplies. Bill tells Joel that although he didn't like him very much, they both had a job to protect the ones they loved in a world where many people weren't worth saving. The letter encourages him to keep Tess safe, and Joel nearly breaks down. He starts charging a battery and tells Ellie their plan is to get to Wyoming and find his brother, who is also a firefly, in the hopes he's alive and can tell them where people are working on the vaccine. Since Ellie's coming with him, Joel gives her rules. They won't talk about their pasts or Tess, ever. She won't tell anyone about her condition or that she's been bit because anyone who sees it would shoot her without thinking. Lastly, anything he says goes. They each show her, and while Ellie waits for Joel, she explores the house and discovers a secret gun that she puts in her backpack. Sitting in a vehicle, seat belts and cassette tapes are completely new to Ellie. Listening to music at all is a luxury they didn't expect.